We are recording online. How's everybody doing? You know who this is? The old Santa Claus wannabe? It is 4:04 a.m., June 23rd, 2025. I thought I'd strike while the iron's hot. I was down taking a nap. I had a few relaxing moments for about 30 minutes, but don't think I slept. But yesterday I had planned on doing a video about a story again in this book. Right? Remember from 2003? And it was another story that had an impact on me. And I'll tell you at the end of it what that was. But it is kind of a long story. So feel free to just listen this as you're driving. You don't have to watch me on the camera again. I'm on that old computer, HP Z240. Used to belong to the Clover School District, I think in South Carolina. So this is the story, and I'm sticking to it. One evening, Jesus was at dinner. The dinner, it seems, was a rather lavish one. At one point, a woman with a bad reputation, we all know who they're talking about, in the town enters carrying an alabaster jar of spikenard ointment. Both the jar and the ointment are very expensive. Alabaster was the Waterford crystal of the time, and spikenard was a very expensive perfume. She breaks the jar, a wasteful act, but one signifying how deeply she loves Jesus and how much she wants this giving to be a singular thing. Then she pours the perfume on him, and its aroma permeates the room. Finally, she cries, and her tears wash Jesus' feet, and she dries his feet with her hair. Just checking to make sure I'm recording. It is hard to paint a scene that is as crass in its depiction of raw affection. That rawness was not lost on the original audience. The evangelists say that people in the room began to grow uncomfortable, as well as they might, and as we would in a similar situation. Some began to voice objections to what was happening. A few objected. Sorry, Bongo's over here next to me. She's wondering why I'm talking to myself. A few objected to the fact that Jesus, who was supposed to be a holy man, was letting a woman with a bad reputation touch him. That, however, was not the main objection, nor was it discomfort. What was making those present uncomfortable was something that also makes us uneasy. Raw gift, lavish, gratuitous affection. Those present voiced their discomfort by pointing to waste and excess. What wastefulness! That jar and ointment could have been sold, and the money could have been given to the poor. Jesus, however, answered the objection by completely affirming what the woman had done, and telling his uneasy, objecting hosts, "Leave her alone. She has done a good thing. The poor you will always have with you, but you won't always have me. She has just anointed me for my impending death." That is the key line. Jesus told his hosts that this woman had just helped ready him for death. What did he mean by that? There are levels of meaning here. One of those, however, is brilliantly captured by John Powell in a short book he wrote some years ago entitled Unconditional Love. It contains within it the story of a young man, Tommy, one of Powell's students, who was 24 years of age and dying of cancer. At one stage before his death, Tommy comes to Powell and shares with him what he feels, that he feels there are worse tragedies in life than dying young. I quote part of their conversation. "What is it like to be only 24 and dying?" "Well, it could be worse." "Like what?" "Well, like being 50 and having no values or ideals. Like being 50 and thinking that booze, seducing women, and making money are the real biggies in this life. The essential sadness is to go through life without loving, but it would be almost equally sad to go through life and leave this world without ever telling those you loved that you had loved them." From the mouth of a dying young man, we hear a great truth. There are only two potential tragedies in life, and dying young is not one of them. What is tragic is to go through life without loving and without expressing love and affection toward those whom we do love. With that truth in hand, let us return to Jesus' comment that someone had just anointed him for his impending death. What Jesus is saying, in effect, might be paraphrased this way: when I come to die, I will be more ready for death because tonight, of all nights in my life, I'm experiencing the reason this universe was made. The giving and receiving of love and affection, pure gift. This is a moment to die for. There is a great irony here. If this woman had gone to Jesus' grave with this outpouring of affection and perfume, it would have been accepted, even admired. You were allowed to anoint a dead body, but it was not acceptable to express similar love and affection to a live one. Nothing has changed in 2,000 years. We still save our best compliments and flowers for the funeral. Jesus' challenge here is for us to anoint each other while we are still alive. Shower those you love with affection and flowers while they are alive, not at their funerals. And after I read this, 2003, I got in the habit of every week when I would go grocery shopping. When you would go in the store, a lot of times at both of the major grocery stores, they would have a display with a bunch of like summer bouquets in it, flowers. They used to be like $4 or $5. Now I think it's more like $8 or $10. Hey, Bongo. So I got in the habit every time I went grocery shopping to pick up one of those bouquets. This is when I lived with Teresa, my sister. And when I would go back home, I would take the bouquet over to her house, and I would set it on her kitchen table or her dining room table, one or the other. And I got in the habit of doing that, and it was nice to, when you came into the house from the outside, not having been in there for a while, you could actually smell the fragrant odor of those flowers. It was just so refreshing to smell fresh flowers. And I thought, yeah, that really does make sense, why people send flowers at a funeral. Why don't they send flowers at least more often? I understand why, to show condolences, but why don't they send flowers more often to people when they're alive? Isn't it true when you're in the hospital too that people bring you flowers? A lot of times they bring you little plants. It would probably be better at a funeral if you sent somebody a note saying redwood trees being planted for you in Oregon, in commemoration of your passing or whatever, so that something positive comes from it instead of just a bunch of flowers. So I did that for, I don't know how many years I did that. I'd buy the flowers and set them on Aunt Teresa's table. So I have comfort knowing that while she was alive, I didn't have to send her flowers at her passing. She got flowers during the week. Like every week, I put new flowers up there. And that was from reading that book, that story I just read you. And what comes to mind is when my step-grandfather passed on. He was a Freemason and a Shriner. I think he was 32nd degree. He was really high up there as a Mason. And he got probably 100 different flower arrangements. It was incredible. And at the cemetery, they put them all up around the grave. And then when they die, they would throw the decomposing flowers on top of the mound. I remember going there a few weeks after his passing, and the mound of flowers, like dead flowers on top of his grave. I mean, does that signify something? Like you send flowers when they pass on, and then after they're buried in the ground, the flowers rot, kind of like people do, and you throw them on top. But that's the story I had for today, sisters and brothers and children. And if I can come up with something else in the next week or so, I'll make another video. Get out there and make a video. It's free. Doesn't take a lot of energy. You just have to get up the gumption to do it. And then just do it. Right? Like Jenny used to say when she was a little baby with the Nike commercial. She'd go around saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Get out there and make a video, everyone. I'm all on secondhand equipment here. Pretty much all bought from Goodwill. I think one thing I got from eBay. But remember that I love you. May God allow us to be reasonably happy in this life, supremely happy forever in the next. Keep your eyes toward heaven, because that is our true home, not on this earth. I love you guys.